YouGov had a snap poll taken after the spring statement, found that 69% of people thought he'd not done enough to help people with increased cost of living. How worried should he be by a figure like that?
Well, certainly not only YouGov's poll, but also a separate one done by Opinion yesterday, both come back with the same message, which is fine as far as it goes. Nobody really opposes the reduction in fuel duty. Nobody really opposes the rise in the national insurance threshold. But the reaction is, as you've just quoted, this isn't enough. The problem, of course, for the Chancellor is that indeed, this is a continuation of the very difficult story that Boris Johnson's government's had to deal with. It had COVID. It's now dealing with the economic consequences of COVID, now added to by Ukraine. That said, of course, what is true is that Rishi Sunak is, at least rhetorically and to some degree in substance, now trying to pivot away from being the Chancellor who spent an awful lot of money on keeping the economy during COVID, to being the Chancellor who, when given a choice, is inclined to be relatively cautious about public spending. Basically, the government are accepting. They're not necessarily spending all the money that they could have done. They're not doing so because they think there are risks that things may turn worse. But it's also clear that Mr. Sunak is inclined to want to get the size of the state down. The problem we face, of course, is at the moment there's an enormous gap between the substance and reality, because although yesterday he was giving us money back, albeit less than he could have done, he's taken away so much in previous measures he's made, the original rise in the rate of national insurance, the fact that the students are now going to have to pay more in graduate repayment, and of course the fact that income tax thresholds have been frozen, and with inflation that now has much more effect. In practice, he is still a tax-raising Chancellor. So the question is, can he politically sell, on the one hand, saying, well, we now need to be more careful, while at the same time actually still imposing much more in the way of taxation on the public at a time when, for reasons that he can't control, cost of living is rising.
And you mentioned that opinion poll yesterday, and that polling company gave Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves a 1-point lead over Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak over who is trusted on the economy. Is that the first time Labour have had a lead on the economy for, like a decade? More than a decade?
No, I hate to disabuse you of that, Gloria. The truth is that over the last couple of months or so, as the popularity of the government declined in the wake of Partygate, so has also its standing on questions like which party you trust on the economy. Actually, I've just looked at 4 different companies who polled in the last week or so. 2 of them have the Conservatives ahead on the economy. 2 of them have Labour ahead on the economy. In most cases, it's very, very narrow, as in the case of the opinion poll. And also note, by the way, many a poll finds that no more than around 60% of people think that either Labour or the Conservatives are the best party on the economy. And actually, an awful lot of people are not convinced that either of them necessarily are handling things that well. So what's also true, however, is that, and this is where I think, in a sense, the argument between the parties is going to partly play out, is that when you ask people about which party is best able to handle the cost of living, on that, Labour does tend to have a rather clearer lead. So Labour will undoubtedly want to keep on focusing on the fact that the government, in its view, is not doing enough about the cost of living, and perhaps say rather less about what to do about the economy. Rachel Reeves this morning was not promising to raise the wages of public sector workers, for example. The government, in contrast, looks as though it's going to want to try to persuade voters of the continued merits of fiscal responsibility and to focus on the broader issue of the economy. That's going to be part of the way in which the party battle now presents itself. But the truth is, at the moment, neither party is either the economy or the cost